Welcome into the stream, everybody. This is your host, Atlas Thugged, real name Aaron Shepard, host of the Real Time Red Pill, and we got a few things to go through today. Hopefully my mic is sounding okay. Let me make sure to double check. Don't have any issues before I get too far into this. Okay, looks like we're good on my end. We're going to start with an announcement, guys. I do have an announcement related to Offensively Accurate, our new podcast show hosted by me, Nick Real, and Thane Schwartz. We hosting it on Spaces again. For those of you who have not heard about that yet, we're hosting it live on Spaces. We will port it into our Spotify podcast, but if you want to catch us live in the moment, you will have to join us on Spaces. There's going to be about a week delay, maybe not even a week, pretty much just about 3 to 4 day delay on episodes getting put up to Spotify. And again, that is because the archival retrieval process is a 24-hour process that's only able to happen once a week. I haven't found any other way around that, but if I can, I would like to get much more consistent. I would like to get the Spotify episodes up, the day after, if not the day of, but, working with what we can. So let me go ahead and start with this, the announcement. You can see it as I'm typing it. I don't need a GIF. I wanted an emoji. I need that fancy emoji with the alarm, so everybody looks at it and knows it's breaking news. So it will be an announcement. Offensively Accurate will be conducting their first interview with Minister Wayne Harris. We're conducting it. So yeah, that's probably right. With Minister Wayne Harris. Wayne Harris is someone who I grew up with from around my area. Now, I wasn't all too familiar with who he was until we actually started working together, but I had heard of him. I had, I knew who he was, just from word of mouth from other people because I lived around the same area as him. He's a man who got a lot of popularity just from around the community because he runs, when he does jogging and he runs and he goes out, he runs like with a cross. He runs with like a big wooden cross. Obviously it's probably terrible for his body, having to switch sides and, just carrying a big old cross around, which he paid a guy to even get a bigger one to haul around, or one that he can like pull like on the back of him to get more of like a workout in instead of just running and cardio. But that's who he is. Minister Wayne Harris, the man who runs with the cross. And we have a plethora of ideas of what we'd like to run through with them. I can, let me go and pull up my, you won't be able to see it. I'm not going to show it to you. I don't want to leak the outline out so far right now. Let me go ahead and get the outline here of where we had our ideas for the interview before I finish typing out that announcement here. So we did it in, we grouped some things together, which I do have a document that me and my co-hosts have, for outline so we can make comments with one another to kind of organize this a bit better, get in our team spaces. But obviously, we're going to do introductions. We'll provide our brief introductions, and then we'll allow, Wayne, our guest, to give his final introduction and be a bit more fuller. Because obviously, you're tuning in episode 3. You've heard the host give their introductions, kind of have a better idea who we are. And we want to know what his story is of, coming to Christ. He's got a new church. He's doing a new thing where he's got a page called, Where the Church Meets. He does a lot of like live streaming for his church services. He does a lot of outreach. That's kind of what, his big calling into Christ has been, is, picking up the pieces of the little guy and those who have been left behind, particularly because he does have and I don't mean this in any negative way, but he does have a criminal background. So he does connect to people who, who grew up in bad conditions, didn't have fathers in the home, didn't have the best, just not the best influences at all growing up. So he relates really well with that. And he's an incredible, role model for, the masculine Christian man, particularly when it comes, you compare, you put him up versus like your average progressive church priest. You're going to there's a huge difference between the way Wayne carries himself and the way that he talks and preaches versus, the typical what you get, now in late stage progressive churches and what the Northern Baptist Church has kind of evolved into. But we want to get his perspective on like what his biggest issue is in culture, what's driving or what he believes driving godlessness, or if he has an entirely different perspective. And we wanted to actually also add in a segment with like tough questions too. So the tough question aspect, these are going to all be like, questions on theological lines. But, I had some of the guys, and I'll give you, one of them, for example, was like, understand, like asking about, do angels have free will? And what he thinks, what the extent of free will is, especially in regards to like, in the story of Lucifer falling out of heaven, he had the free will to go against God, right? So there's a lot more questions tied into that, and we like to get an expert opinion from, we're just three regular guys who we love, we love Christ, we love the Bible, but we don't understand it as nearly as well who's someone who's like dedicated their life to being in the word and understanding, all of the different backgrounds, whether it's historical or whether it's like other influences from other groups, other countries, the geopolitical stuff at that time. Someone who's just got a more well-rounded understanding of these things that happen compared to, my basic layman's understanding. And so I won't give up much more information about that. So again, if you do want to catch that interview, will be 9 p.m. at on Sunday on Spaces. And again, like I said, when we get it to Spotify, it will probably be a few days behind before we get up on Spotify. Unless we entirely change that we're hosting it on Spaces, maybe we move something to Discord and we record it out of there, or some kind of other different podcast platform. But I think right now, with the discoverability that's on Twitter and X, and the way that X is kind of functioning right now, I just see it as a much more secure place to host all of this rather than moving to a platform like YouTube. But that's also to say, like, we could also just get third party podcasting, software, and then do it not live, just on our own end, and then everybody just gets the recorded version, and we don't have anything live. But I think that takes away a big aspect of what we want to do, which is like the grassroots. We like to bring people up to give their opinion, as long as you don't have a voice changer on, or you're botting, or you're trying to spread like Cardi B messages around, which happened to our last episode. But we think it's a good idea to get as many people as involved as possible and make them feel like their voices are heard, their voices count, like, and we hope, and I can't understate this enough, we hope that you don't feel that our convictions lead you to a place of like, you feel like you can't speak because that we might disagree with you. We want you, we encourage it. We'd like to, we'd like to sift through the disagreement and understand, where the disagreements come from, and maybe why you have a differing perspective. And we can just talk through these things, and we can't talk through these things if everyone's kind of terrified and overly opinionated to the point where they're too close-minded to accept anything else than what their brain tells them is correct. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and move on. Let me go ahead and finish this, typing it out. Its first interview with Minister Wayne Harris, the man who runs with the cross. Again, will be hosted here on Spaces by me at 9 p.m. this Sunday. With the real Nick Rio. He needs some more followers, so I don't have to type his whole name out every time I want to add this brother. And I think a lot of this could be, let's see. I know, I'll keep it simple. Yeah, let's go ahead and post that. It's simple enough. And I can edit if I want to add more information to it, I guess, later on, or just make a new one. Okay, so to move on, I did have a group of these. Let's see, the first thing was the Christ pill versus the red pill. For those of you who aren't familiar with a lot of the accounts that are on X, one of the bigger accounts that's been pushing, who's inserted himself into the red pill movement, but to hopefully garner a lot of people into Christ, is Sovereign Bra. Sovereign Bra and Myron, who is the host of Fresh and Fit, the Fresh and Fit podcast, which is one of the more popular red pill podcast, which I believe it might be even more popular than the Whatever podcast, I guess. They got into a tiff on Twitter now, specifically regarding how Sovereign Bra views the red pill as operating inside of the feminist world and adapting to it versus trying to conquer it and rebel against it and get rid of all of these feminist tendencies. And I don't believe I actually did bookmark a lot of these posts, so I'd try it's better if I go off of his page, find one of these first ones. And then Pearl Davis inserted herself as well too. So let me just get to one of these first ones here. And also I will say too, because I do have this one bookmarked, he held a Spaces event himself. Sovereign Bra did, with a bunch of other individuals. Let me just click on it here so I can show you. See if I get to this point. I was just going to try to show you some of the other. See, I don't know why it's giving me problems.
Let's do a few days
Here we go.
Counts as bad. Did that to the timeline, and it got like a few.
So yeah, we ended up getting people like Elijah Seraphim, a bunch of these bigger accounts, right? So I mean, I guess bigger is a push for someone that's only got, but 20,000, 30,000, 40,000. A bunch of these different other accounts that are kind of making their names heard on, on X in the Christian space. So I thought it was a really good discussion that they had. There was even people like Rachel Wilson and Andrew Wilson ended up stepping in at certain points to give their takes. So, some people are a lot more leaning into like the red pill's got more value to it and there needs to be more explored, while Sovereign Bra is just outwardly kind of just anti what the red pill movement has become, which I'm closer to where Chase is than anything else. So let's get this started. I think the post was, here we go. From Myron Gaines. This is the one that got quote tweeted to oblivion, which was, Jesus can't save these hoes, and neither can you. You tradcons need to realize feminism is here to stay, and it isn't going anywhere. Adapt to the new normal or keep getting married by the church and destroyed by the state. So let's parse this through, right? So it's the first thing he says is Jesus can't save, which is like, I guess my takeaway would be like, he clearly doesn't believe in the message of Christ. I'm not sure what his background is. I believe he is a practicing Muslim, but regardless, to simply say that Jesus lacks the power to save, promiscuous women is just like, that's incredible. Of course he can. Doesn't mean you need to go and save them. But like to say that Jesus can't, it's just like you either don't respect the Christian faith or you don't understand it. Or you're just trying to twist things and put a spin to bolster your fake argument. The next sentence here. You tradcons need to realize feminism is here to stay and isn't going anywhere. So that's right. That's like a doomer position here. You tradcons need to realize. So understanding that there's nothing you can do. It's not going anywhere. Quite literally, any attempt that you have is worthless and just give in, which I think just because the battlefield looks like it's lost doesn't mean it's time to accept your fate. It's just one of these things where it goes back to like, because the odds are so ever not in your favor, that you just might as well accept it. And I deny that, I'm fight to the end. I don't care how bleak it looks. You stand on your principles, and no amount of like, except, seeing the other side winning should make you fold or give up or specifically in this example, completely give in to the gynocracy, right? Just accept it. Men are never gonna get their head of household. They're never gonna claim, the rightful gender roles back. Things will not ever, materialize themselves into being traditional as they should be. So give up. And then his final point, right, which is off of what we just said, which was adapt to the new normal or keep getting married by the church and destroyed by the state. The final thing he does say, I do give credit, like that is the mass push to get men to just marry younger or just get married. I cannot take that position. Like, yes, I think it's a good thing to go get married. Yes, it's a good thing to go and explore to go and explore, courtship into the most vigilant way that you can. But the vetting process to get to marriage needs to be much, much stricter. I think a lot of what gets left behind is how bad family courts are. Like, the state is entirely against men. And I think to just omit that, and to say, because of what you'll see is a lot of these people will say, like, Matt Walsh and all these other people will just give this typical prescription of, like, go get married, just go get married. You don't understand, like, go get married. But then but omit anything about how bad family courts are. And it's like, I think that's irresponsible. It's irresponsible to tell young men to get married without also attaching the notation of, understand that there's the majority of women who are really not marriageable. You need to do your best to vet that, make sure the woman that you are going to marry and commit to for the rest of your life does not exhibit any of these red flags, does not exhibit any of this, because understand, you will be the one who has no leverage if anything were to change. If you go to divorce court, if you go here, because the state is so effeminized, the state is so unwilling to give the man the benefit of the doubt. There's been so many crazy cases where, like, the mother has been allowed to receive child support, whether it was, like, no matter how shallow the means. There's been instances where, like, stand-up fathers have been rejected to give their children to literal crackhead mothers purely on the fact that she's the mom. And this kind of, like, surface level, like, well, men can't provide what women can. And it's just, none of it's really backed up by statistics. I think it was not too long ago that it was pointed out to a majority of people that single father households versus single mother households, children perform much, much, much better in the single father households. And here, let me just, instead of just saying that, let me just actually show you single father households compared to single mothers. So this is from the Pew Research Center. This is from 2013? No, that's not what I want to see. Yeah, this is from Medium. Single father households do vastly better than single mother. Here's this real reason why. I don't want to know what their opinion is. I'd like to see some statistics. Oh, I can't read the full story without creating an account. See, that's so bogus. Here, he's got the study. There we go. Oh, the study was by Medium. This is on a Reddit post. But the gist is essentially that single father households exhibit a lot of the similar traits and positive values that kids would have if they were raised in a normal two-parent household with no divorce and no separation. So it calls into question even, like, what even is the rationale for being, so willing to hand over to the woman, when it's like, what data do you even have to back up all these decisions, particularly, like, when the volume is so excessive for one side. Now, to get back to this conversation specifically, Sovereign Bra responds with a quote tweet, particularly to what Myron had said, saying, "You're deliberately deflecting, Myron. Stay on topic. I never said dudes need to be Captain Save a Ho." Correct, which was my point in the fact of, like, don't try to be more merciful than God. Like, he, it specifically says that. It tells you, do not try to be more merciful than your God. But to sit there and say, like, that Jesus can't save them just because a human being like sad incel can't save them, doesn't mean that Jesus can't save them. It's just one of those blatant, like, you say something that's so egregiously, like, wrong and dumb, like, he should have expected to get this kind of pushback. And he goes on to say, "I said influencers like you are hypocritical degenerates who are perpetuating the problem here. You criticize female promiscuity, as do I, but then you tell men it's good to sleep with tons of women, never get married, and cheat on their girlfriends and wives. You're making the problem worse, not building the solution. And correct, 100%. If all the red pill men continually tell men like to never change, just completely adapt inside of the system, which in turn what their messaging is essentially kind of give up on the idea of marriage, become one of these men who are allowed to who have the sexual access, which is the top 10% of men, and just be a part of the problem is essentially their message. Now, what I will agree with Chase on, which he said in the spaces, is like there are some real values in the red pill community, which is like for men being better able to understand a woman's mindset, what she finds attractive, and how she values men, and changing that from the stereotypical like school version of what it's like to be a masculine man, which is buy her flowers, be a nice guy, because everyone knows that doesn't work. That's men up for failure. So it does offer, some value of understanding, like for men to understand what makes them more attractive to women, like what values should they strive for, and it's a positive message to tell someone that they need to work on themselves, they need to clean themselves up, they need to go to the gym, they need to now they're obviously like get a job, but in no means, do I think it needs to follow and go into the far reaches of where red pill goes, which is like make hundreds of thousands of dollars and if you don't, you're worthless. Like, nah, dude, like find what you love, get your bills paid. Like you don't need to chase money, like Donnie said this great on our spaces, which is like, there's no amount of money that will ever comfort you on your deathbed. You could, if you're dying and laying in a hospital bed while you can't breathe, suffering from ammonia, from whatever maybe, sickness you may have occurred, it's not going to matter that you have millions of dollars in the bank, because if you can't buy something that can save you, well then like it's worthless. Like the thing that you need, you literally can't get because there's no transaction you can make with money. So some things are priceless. Some things are absolutely like way above ever being able to be attained by monetary value. But to continue, you're making the problem worse, not building the solution. I am not here to adapt to feminism. I'm here to completely destroy it. Feminism will only be destroyed by returning Western civilization to a state of godly patriarchy, which is how God designed the world to work. This is the solution. This is the Christ bill. Now, while I do agree with everything that he says in that final portion, what I think he leaves out is, for one, just how much time that's going to take to reclaim and remove how deep, the fifth and sixth wave feminism has set its roots into society. Let's see, I got a comment here. Man, that live chat looks so bad with the screen on Twitter. Let me change it and bulk it up. We should be teaching young men to live a happy, simple life. You don't need a Bugatti to be happy. 100%. There's a lot of things like maybe buying flowers can make your wife smile, but what's the difference between a $3 batch of flowers that you can pick up from like the local lady who sells her flowers outside the shop versus like a $250 bouquet you get delivered, and handpicked from whatever delivery service it may be. And I think a key though, where the churches are lacking, and a lot of people say the prescription of this is for people, and men particularly, to go back into the churches, get involved in the churches, because that's the only place you're going to find a good woman. Well, I will disagree that it might be the only place you can find a good woman. It is where you should at least be putting most of your energy if you wish to pursue a woman who you seek to marry and have a lifelong commitment with. But where I think the church lacks, and Chase echoes the sentiment too, is the church lacks the instilling of values of masculinity of men, what they should seek in courtship, how they should pursue courtship, particularly like what things they should do to make themselves attractive to women. It just doesn't exist in church really, for the most part, at least not on a surface level. Now, maybe it might exist on some youth groups, but it's like, do you think it's advertised? Like, no, it's not advertised at all like that. It's really, and a lot of it's become effeminized and progressive in a direction that goes away from instilling a lot more masculine values, head of household, being a leader. A lot of that kind of like the progressiveness kind of preaches partnership and equal submission to each other. And I just think that's a sham. But in particular, like the church should be doing things such as like the example I just brought up, which would be understanding the value in telling the difference between a woman who would value a $3 bouquet the same way how a woman who wouldn't value a $3 bouquet and would much rather value the $250 one, and understanding like those are small instances and exhibits that you can use as evidence to understand and be like pattern recognition and be like, okay, if I'm noticing a woman who's particularly enjoying like high end things and like that's not my vibe, that's probably not something I should pursue. But I don't even know if the churches even go to like those surface level kind of sentiments to kind of preach to men. And there's a lot of talk about salvation, a lot of talk about evangelizing, and a lot of talk about pushing communities and helping people. But there's very, very too little about community building, marriage building, family building, and let alone like how many churches do you go to that just act as if like they exist in a vacuum and give no attention or credence to anything that's going on, whether it be in their own community or politically at their own state level. And those are things that churches should be like, they're huge influences in the community. The churches should be they should have their finger on the pulse of what happens in everyday and day society, because they are a lighthouse, a beacon of influence for the Christian creed, for the Christian belief. And for them to just turn a blind eye and kind of turn the lighthouse off and disappear is like, dude, that is apathy. And I don't think it's okay that across the board we see as the churches in all of Western, specifically America, just it's a fruit of godlessness is apathy. Just choosing to not talk about things, choosing to just turn a blind eye towards these situations. And it's no wonder we've gotten this very processed and safe and ready to eat like version of Christianity, which is why it's so hard to get men to want to go to churches. And that ties in another example would be like the Jesus is my boyfriend music type stuff that people always harp on, which is, you'll finally get a dude into service, and then, after 30 minutes of listening to like, let Jesus come in me, they're like, they don't want to be there. Like you've already lost them. And not to say like, music and that kind of worship is bad. It's just like, it's effeminate to a point that it is actively turning away young men, and the inability for churches to recognize that infrastructure is preventing their ability to grow. This problem will continue to be cyclical. And they're already like these two groups, the feminism and red pill are already like two loops that constantly feed into each other, right? Because the crazy feminists will take a clip that they see from whatever, and then they post it on their pages and they go, see, like, this is why we have to continue our mission. And then the red pill guys will see a clip from a feminist going crazy over the whatever clip, and then they post it on their end and see, look, they can't even understand these basic things. Like, we got to go eat. And it keeps feeding into one another. This cycle of negativity and just sadness just continues, and it's chaos. But this continued, right? So he even ends this with like, as a Muslim, you should understand these things, which I even thought, like, I thought Myron was religious, at least a little bit, because he'd been on Timcast before, and he kind of seemed or carried himself in that manner that he did believe in a God or creator above him. And again, this is no way to diss to Myron. It's kind of hard to see how he carries himself on a podcast in one way, and then see his rhetoric on X in another way is like, gives me reason to be like, dude, do you really believe that? Like, you're making me kind of second guess these things. Like, okay, like that's a little sus to me, because for me anymore nowadays, it's like anything that's like, I'm always going to keep it and be like, any amount of questioning of these people is like, it's enough for me to be like, okay, put a pin in it. Like maybe I'll listen to you if I see something else here later down the line. But it didn't stop there, because obviously Pearl had to involve herself here. And they're commenting on this post, which is, actually, let me just go ahead and play it here. Let me mute my mic.
I personally speak out against male promiscuity. I think one of the worst problems in our world is promiscuity in general. I don't support dudes like sleeping with a ton of women. A lot of guys are like, if a guy has a high body count, dudes will be like, dude, nice. I think it's degenerate.
Like, it's still like a hot girl, go for it.
Yeah, I think it's degenerate, personally.
It's like contributing to the problem with
exactly.
Well.
A lot of influencers that are like, yeah, women with high body counts are bad, but also you as a man should go get laid as much as humanly possible. It's like, bro, you're literally advocating for men to contribute to the problem that you're calling out.
I forgot to unmute myself. That's hilarious. This is the video that Myron went ahead and clipped to kind of own Sovereign Bra, which was essentially Sovereign Bra admitting that like he recently had fornicated with a female, and like kind of, but in no way is he proud of it. And here, I won't explain it very well, so let me just go ahead and play it.
You're waiting until marriage now, correct?
I'm continuing to do my best to maintain abstinence.
Was there a
Cryptic.
There
There was a
has
break.
been-
Hold on.
Cryptic.
I have.
there an-
I will
Had
say.
an-
I will
Chase.
say.
Say it.
I am not above temptation.
No, Chase.
Yeah, dude, it's over.
whoa,
It's
no.
over. It's so over.
Whoa,
It is
okay.
over.
So to give
someone
people
tempt you?
context, Chase,
Bachelor days.
my understanding, the last time you were on, or in previous shows you were on, you had been celibate for 2 years, 2.5
Three-
years,
There was three a break years.
in the celibacy.
3 years.
No longer.
Chase, are you saying that you you broke your celibacy?
man.
Chase,
I fell into temptation, bro.
Chase,
Oh
need to
my
get in church.
goodness.
he was tempted. Chase,
How does Andrew feel
I'm
about
not
that?
mad. I'm just disappointed.
Yeah, Andrew.
Bro.
Did you
To have Brian Atlas turn around is the best part. To go, I'm not mad. I'm just disappointed. And it's funny because usually it's the other way around, where Chase is kind of holding Brian's feet to the fire in terms of like what's moral and what's not. So it's just kind of a funny turnaround. But Myron wanted to use this as a way to kind of completely discredit everything that Chase has ever said in regards to preaching Christ. Now, if I can get back here, I think I had a reply here, which was, right here. Which was, bro said he fell into temptation and definitely didn't seem proud of it. This is a toddler level argument. The Christian isn't perfect, so everything he says isn't credible. Horrible take. I encourage you to dig deeper. Because he said, is this the guy leading us to the Christ pill? Seems he engages in the same promiscuity he shames me for. And again, it's just like this stupid argument of like, oh, well, the only way that you can ever listen to a Christian is if they're perfect human beings. And it's like, dude, that is so antithetical to what is even written in the Bible, that it's like, how could you have such a perverted view of what a Christian's supposed to be? And it's like, obviously, it's like, you're not supposed to just be like, well, you're fail all the time, dude. Like, no. It's strive to rely on God and give your problems, your angers, your struggles, give them up to him, rely on him. In what ways can you lean on him to take them from you? In no way did it seem like to me that he was happy. Obviously he's smirking, but again, like a good bit of that is the fact that he's surrounded by 9 other women who are like, kind of teasing him for giving it up. Now he could have stood himself up better and been like, like I'm deeply ashamed that I did that. And maybe there's more to it. It's only a minute clip, but I didn't see this episode, nor do I watch the whatever podcast nearly at all. I only see clips of Sovereign Bra destroying people on there. But you could see the dude in between them. I don't know who that is. He said multiple times, he's like, get back into church, brother. You need to get back. And that, I'm glad that there is always seemingly going to be someone at least at that level giving that kind of encouragement. And that's what they should do. Don, you said how I'm way further from perfect than that guy. Same. Like, same. I don't even think I'm anywhere nearly as what's the word? As pure. Like I try my best, like, don't get me wrong, but I still see a lot of like different Christians in my life and people who I went to church with where I still sit and I'm like, I don't even know how can I get myself like that close to the Lord? Because for me, some of these things, it's not like it's hard things to give up. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, a lot of things are very easy to give up. But when it comes to people's entire personalities changing, like, and being able to just like, let go of anger within like milliseconds, and being able to do that over and over and over again is something that I just admire and respect. Like, I've watched a couple people who I've grew up with, who I respect a lot, who went from being like, really nasty, kind of like just not the best person or kind of anybody you really want to kind of hang around, and then turn into someone who who is a role model, someone who could literally clean themselves up to a point where it's like, man, they are walking with Christ. Like it's hard to not notice when those hard changes happen, and let alone like me, like I just feel like I just make mistakes all the time. I just try to do my best to not make these mistakes. And I think that I do a good job growing, at least, every single day, or at least in some aspect, how matter small that is. And it doesn't mean I don't take steps back either, but I at least I like to look back at in the big picture and be like, okay, I'm closer to than where I was, years ago. But it's just, again, like this toxic, if Christians aren't perfect, they'll never take you seriously. And so again, it's tantamount to the burden that's on our shoulders as Christians. Like, if you really want to get this message across, like, you better be on your stuff, dude. Like, you better be on it, on target all the time. Or like, just like this, you're going to get clipped, and 1 minute's going to be able to turn away, hundreds of thousands of people because they got you, they owned you, and because their poor lack of understanding or the poor framing of how the clip was shown to them was enough for them to write off Christianity until the next person enters their life that can walk them towards or turn them towards Christ. And it's sad, but it is what it is. What do you expect? The writing on the wall with this kind of stuff was very well and apparent with Calendargate, to see how hard people were unwilling to change or back down from their convictions on either side. So it's going to be a rough road to follow. And there was a few more that had mixed in with this between Myron and Sovereign Bra, but I'll just go back to Sovereign Bra's post because he had a couple good ones here. Let me see. He does post a 10-second clip of Myron saying like what it should be to get married, and I'll just go ahead and play this.
As a man, what age
What
should
about
you
women?
consider getting married?
35 years old, had slept with at least 50 women, 100K per year, you're in shape, and you got 6 months to 1 year of savings.
As a man, what
So essentially he's saying like, don't get married young, like wait till you're old and you're ready to like just settle it down. But the part where it's like incredible is like, he's like, at least make sure you've ran through 50 women before you get married. And that is quite literally like you telling someone to make the problem worse for all the other men that will come after you. And I don't see how he can't see how cyclical his position is. When Red Pill was in its early forms of like the 2015, 2016, 2017 type era, when it was a lot of the meninist stuff, it purely was a lot more just reactional to, feminism. It was more along the lines of like, no, dude, it's okay that like you being masculine is okay. Like you shouldn't feel like a retard. You shouldn't feel broken. You shouldn't be made to feel less than because like you're a regular masculine guy. To where it's evolved to where it's at now, which is essentially like, let's just make this problem worse. Let's just burn this whole thing down, while offering no solutions to curb this environment in the future, only to ensure that it constantly repeats itself for every other man, who's a year younger than you, so on and so forth, and for generations to come. And I thought it was good. I thought Sovereign Bra, held his ground very well. Oh, I left this page, dang it. He had, I think, one or two more follow-up ones, because he just kept going at him. He's got a bunch of these here. Because see, when he goes off on Twitter, he'll start laying them out, dude. And it's like 30 in a row. I didn't want to see those. Where's that at? Okay, is it this one? No, it was this one, right here. Red Pill influencers are hedonistic degenerates that hate God and explicitly advocate for everyone to submit to feminism. I don't know if they hate God. I don't know if I'd go that far. I mean, they're certainly putting forward, outward acts of defiance of God. I do agree with that. Spiritually homosexual behavior. Literally the gayest and most impotent movement I've ever seen. 12 men with zero access to the internet spread Christianity throughout the entire world. Billions of people now follow it. Red pill guys reach hundreds of millions of people online while crying about how they can't do anything about feminism. Spineless losers, man. Truly. I want to find the one that he quoted to Pearl. Give me a second. It's got to be here. Yeah, I think this was the best takeaway that he had, and it was on Pearl, unfortunately, and not on Myron. But I think Pearl's more egregious in the way that she kind of, does her rhetoric too. Like, some of these posts on Twitter, dude, are just like, what's that called? Like depression porn, like sadness porn, masochist incel stuff. Like, I don't even know why you'd even want to engage with half of her posts when they're like, guys, give me a story about the time that like you got cucked and didn't realize it, and then your wife stole all your money. Like, post here, and it's like, dude, how does this help, man? Like, how does that? Like, it would help more if it was like a one-on-one, or like, can you guys give me ideas of how you corrected yourselves after dealing with this problem? Not like everybody just like on me, give me all of the bad things and why we hate women just out loud. It's crazy. But Selvin Bra says, reality is not what is likely going to happen. Reality is what actually happens. We, as people, can influence that with our actions. Sure, the odds are stacked against us. You and I are in agreement about that. The odds were also stacked against Christ rising from the dead. The odds were stacked against 12 men spreading Christianity throughout the entire planet. The odds were stacked against the founding fathers of America when they were up against the most powerful army in the world. If everyone had as little faith as you, nothing good would ever happen in the world. Your argument isn't basically, well, it doesn't look likely that we can turn things around, and all of this seems hard, so we might as well not even try. You've got to have more faith in that, Pearl. I worship a God that makes miracles happen. I see no reason why he can't make miracles happen in our culture, particularly when it involves defeating satanic ideologies like feminism. Why wouldn't God want to help us with that? As Jesus Christ said, if you remain in me and my words remain in you, ask whatever you wish and it shall be done for you. This is to my Father's glory, that you bear much fruit, showing yourselves to be my disciples. John 15, verses 7 through 8. That's a promise from Christ, and it's one he keeps. I've seen it many times in my own life. If you actually want to see our culture change, pray for it like everything depends on your prayers, and work for it like everything depends on your efforts. That's my philosophy in life, and it moves the needle. Like, mic drop. I mean, it's real. Like, once again, I had that epiphany where it was like, once he made that point, that was Red Pill only is really ever going to just be an elite operation inside of an effeminate gynocracy, or this matriarchy that they wish to have, and instead of what currently exists. It was like, oh yeah, these people are dumb. Like the Red Pill movement can end right now, actually. Or in fact, you can keep the Red Pill, but add virtue into your messaging, get rid of the hedonistic degeneracy, which is you pushing men to just take advantage of women that, pump and dump them, because it's not conducive to having to a good future. It's not conducive. Like, will they? No, I don't really know. I doubt it. I think that their position is quite clear. Like, they're going to doom on and doom until they have a greater influence. I'm just glad that it was met with confrontation by the Christian space, and with somebody who was articulated Sovereign Bra. But it is depressing the way to look at it, because even if we want a Christ pill, it's still going to take multiple generations, probably a minimum of 2 generations, to lean ourselves back into where gender roles in society was. It's probably, honestly, it's probably going to take so much more than that. But if you want it to happen, and you want to conquer this feminism and remove from society, and correct the way, the natural order of the way God designed things to be, it's going to be hard. Like, I don't think anyone's kind of contesting how hard it's going to be. And And I think a lot of the costs and the negative externalities will be a large percentage of women who, you know, who just are divorced and unhappy or never got married, and they just live the rest of their lives being sad and pathetic and with their cats because they waited for a guy that never was going to come. They believed this lie that this macho Giga Chad was going to come in and he wasn't going to care that she did porn for 19 years of her life, and he was going to marry her and take care of her and love her as if she was the most pure thing on this earth. And on the other hand, like, you know, you're going to get this messaging of like, yeah, no, if you just make all this money and you run through all these women, like, you know, you're eventually going to feel like you're a masculine man. You're eventually just going to make it. And no amount of that will ever replace like the organic, beautiful connection as a monogamous like unison is when you join, you know, two spirits to one as marriage was designed. You're never going to have or feel that love and validation as you would the way that your wife would make you feel if you were in a correct relationship. And there's going to be, again, on that side of the field, there's going to be a large percentage of men who simply just did not step themselves up to the plate enough and will probably, you know, not get married or will live their lives very, very sadly because they are so in tune with this doom rhetoric that they just never pull themselves out of it. They never, you know, try to lean on Christ to get themselves to a better position. And so I think we are going to have a bad period of time where there's going to be a lot of unhappy individual people. And another point too that I would like to bring up is a lot of people don't realize, like, Myron is former like Homeland Security. And recently there was a report that was put out, which was the red pill manosphere types are a domestic terrorist threat. And the way they worded it was they believe that the more inflamed this incel rhetoric gets, the more the people at the top or the authorities are convinced that it's going to lead to an incel, you know, conducting domestic terrorism on the basis of, like, you know, they can't get laid. And I would say, like, what do you expect? Has anyone been to the Middle East? Have you not seen how badly, like, the dichotomy between male and female has destroyed cultures? Like, you want to make it easy for someone to strap a bomb to their chest and scream Allahu Akbar? Well, how you do that is make sure they have no access to women. They have no chance of ever being able to be married or lead a household in a manner that they were born to. Well, man, well, hell yeah, if I ain't ever gonna get laid, then probably the next best option is at least getting out of this. Like, what man wants to grow up in some kind of lifestyle where, you know, this guy has 5 wives, that guy has 6 wives, and you can't get one based upon like how you were born, what caste you were in, you know, the class issues like that. And if we're gonna breed a class of people like that, well, of course you have the worst demographic you can have would be to have an unhappy, but, you know, charged up group of 18 to 34 young men who have no sexual access and are further being radicalized in all facets, whether it's at the geopolitical level and national politics, or it's on the social side, particularly when it's like just getting beat over the head with a cudgel with all this anti-white garbage. Like, how many times in a row is a white guy going to have to watch another ad of the NFL where this big black dude just sits between a husband and wife, and there's all this symbology there where, like, it's just like this cuck kind of stuff. You know, you go to like the Gillette razors, it keeps increasing. And the more that people sit here and deny it, or they say the great replacement doesn't happen, white people aren't, this and this isn't happening, the more you are blatantly encouraging or signaling to those who are being radicalized that you do not see their problems, you will not give any credibility to the arguments, and you deny them a position to represent themselves of what they see is causing them issue. I'm sorry, like, yeah, like, expect bombs to go off, dude. I don't know what to tell people. I don't know how you're going to sit there and expect that a man's going to be told that he's going to be beat over the head with a schedule socially through the entire portion of his life because of like what he is or how he looks or how he dresses. But it's not that. Just because he's white, it'll never be good enough. And you know, and get with social reinforcement, have all the social reinforcement in the world, be told like, yeah, like girls like black guys better, girls like Mexican guys better, girls like, and then be like, okay, well, I'm on the bottom of the totem pole, and then at the bottom of the totem pole, you finally like in your head, and it might not be true, but anecdotally, you're just like, okay, well, the best I can probably do is like, you know, that fat girl at my gas station. And then you try to go get with the girl at the gas station, and she's like, "How much money do you make? You don't make $200K? You're worthless. You're gross." And then the fall of your dignity after you've been, you know, disrespected by, you know, your average Gorlock the Destroyer who works at the 7-Eleven, you know, who's got like 18 piercings in the side of her mouth, you know, while she's also got like rolls on rolls on rolls. It's hard to recover from, dude. Like there's and it's never happened to me. Like, and then don't ever think it happened to me. I won't let you disrespect me like that. But I know people who have probably been in those positions, you know, and I will say I am not been, you know, rejected by Gorlock the Destroyer, but I've been rejected by a girl who I was like, I don't think she's that attractive. And when you get rejected by a girl who you like, oh, I don't think she's that attractive, it kills you. It murders you on the inside. You know, because you're essentially sitting there gauging with your perspective, like, I'm worth nothing. And if I can't even get a girl I'm not even attracted to and she finds me gross, then what is the effing point? I have no chance at legacy. I can't even expect to come home and build a family out and be loving. It's this nagging relationship where I'm always being, what do you expect, man? Now, obviously that's not the dynamics from everybody, you know, like I have a beautiful dynamic with my wife. I love our relationship. I know plenty of men who I'm really good friends with, and they have beautiful dynamics with their women. And they didn't let the social, you know, forces of evil turn them away and become these incels and radicalize themselves. But I feel that it is going to continually get worse the more that these cycles kind of feed into each other. And the more that we actively look to blame the other gender, more so than we look to be like, what would, like, how should we involve Christ in this? How should I look to Christ for advice to move forward with this, rather than this self-reliance, make all the money, you know, have all the sex with the hoes? Like, it's not conducive to anything positive. But again, I also sit here and think like, I think it's worth noting, like, if Myron is a former Homeland Security, you know, and it's recently been posted that they view, I think it was like they put him at the 4th, you know, they just view the rising manosphere red pill incel types to be, caution, like this could be a rising group of radicals who could be potentially in line to cause domestic violence, while also one of the biggest contributors to the Red Pill movement is a former Homeland Security officer. Like, there's questions to be had there. Like, are they trying to encourage some kind of crazy event like this? Like, and then that brings into a whole lot of other stuff too. But I think there should be some questions there. I don't think Myron's someone who you should get your virtue from. I think he's shown that time and time again. Like, and that's not to take away from that there being value in the Red Pill. Like, you know, when Myron's, you know, pushing out values of like why he's like, you should carry every single day. He's like, if you don't carry every single day, you're an idiot. There's value to that, right? You know, like for changing for people's minds on Second Amendment and different things like that. So it's not all a wash. Whereas I think on the other hand, in contrast, like feminism for the most part, it's all a wash. Like they don't really do anything. Like some aspects of Red Pill helps teach men to be better men. Not all of it, but some of it. Where with feminism, almost all of it teaches women how to be less desirable to the average man. And encourages them to hold tenets that people despise. And I really don't. There's almost nothing of good value a woman can obtain from feminism. That's my opinion on that. To move it on, I saw a snippet from Hashan Piker that caught my attention today, which was him saying that certain groups of people should be raped. I'm not lying. That is exactly what he said. I'm going to pull it up here in a second. Or at least that's what the note on the tweet was. I took their word for it. Again, let's find the tweet so I can be sure or be real. And would you look at that? The tweet was deleted. No, there it is. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and mute myself again so I can just let this play out without having to put headphones on.
They were at least Patrick Henry College is like doing one good thing, which is that like if you have these fucking millionaire, billionaire, WASP fail sons, at least taking them out of other colleges so they can only do date rape to other billionaire, millionaire failed daughters is like, in some respects, you know, from a utilitarian perspective, of course, a little bit better. You know what I mean? Like taking these guys and putting them in a pen with one another is ultimately getting them away from the broader society. Teaching, they were at least Patrick Henry College.
That is violently disgusting. The caption says, this is from Ian Miles Chong, another account I really don't care for, but Hoshan Piker says that it's okay from a utilitarian perspective for the children of wealthy families to be raped. This guy is the #1 most popular political host on Twitch. Yeah, but that also speaks to like how, multiple things. Let me start from this. The reason why rape and this over-sexualized stuff is being more common. I mean, for one, the border, the immigrants that are coming in, like, I'm sorry, but like, dude, we are seeing an exceptional amounts of rapes around all on the southern border, and they're bleeding up further up into the Midwest. Like, we do not like these people are not as civilized as we are here in America. Yeah, Don, you say that guy always has the worst takes. He does. I think he's just shot content at this point. Like, he just doesn't even want to try. He just gets online, watches a video, and whatever the first thing that enters his brain comes out of his mouth. But I mean, and you've probably seen the way he carries himself, like, you know, in public too. Like, I definitely don't think this is somebody you should be getting your virtues from. But again, this, like, why doesn't the media talk about how bad the rape issue has become? Like, man, I don't even want to look it up. I don't want to go into it. I'll just keep it at this. When they found, I believe it was at Eagle Pass in Texas, when they found a 6 or 8-year-old girl with like 10 different DNA samples inside of her for that she had gotten assaulted. These things are the stuff that they can't talk about because they know they would lose the narrative if like there was any amount of focus or segment about this kind of stuff, right? So if the media covered, you know, how uncivilized and unbecoming some of these people were who were crossing over the border, well, they'd begin to lose a lot of the narrative of like, they're just like you, like they're just like us guys. They just have it's just a bad place. They're refugees. Like like, and somewhat kind of pulling the wool over people's eyes as if like they of course they share the same values as us guys. Like, of course they do. Just let them across, let them in. We have plenty of space. And that's not the case whatsoever. And for someone who is married, like when I see these stories of rape and the decapitations and forcing people to revert in the name of Allah and all this stuff that's finding its way into America, like it is actively, the only way that I can honestly take it is that the government actively hates the country. Any person who has any ability whatsoever at the federal level of what's being done on the border hates America. They hate you for one, and just the omission of how bad and uncivilized and just disgusting. It's a crime against humanity. It really is. I'm really finding myself lacking the words to put it in a better way, but I don't know how you can, how anyone could be okay with just this mass amount of immigration and all the different reports of how badly people have been treated, to just not say like, dude, like we are actively killing ourselves here. Like, come on. But I didn't have much for that. I just saw the Sean Piker bit and I was like, yeah, probably should cover that a little bit. I did want to go into a fourth section, but let's go ahead because we're talking about the border already. If you're not aware, the Supreme Court ruled in favor of 5-4 that they can remove the razor wiring barriers in Texas. Let me actually find a cleaner tweet. I think it was from Greg Price. Greg Price is usually on his stuff. We find him here. Oh, come on, man. Is it really that much news? Yeah, I would like to get to Tucker's take on it too. There's oh dang. There we go. The Supreme Court just ruled 5-4 that the Biden administration can remove physical barriers that Texas put at their border to stop the invasion. Now, the person who I expected it when I saw the news when I was talking to my wife I was like, I bet Amy Coney Barrett was the one who voted to let that happen. And lo and behold, it was Amy Coney Barrett in Roberts. And to go to Tucker's take on it too, because Tucker had a really good take, which looks like he'd retweeted it as well. So it's unanimous. Everyone in power, from the White House to the hedge fund managers to the Supreme Court of the United States, has decided to destroy the country by allowing it to be invaded. That leaves the population to defend itself. Where are the men of Texas? Why aren't they protecting their state and nation? And you know what? It seems like that is quite literally the direction we're going. Civil war, civil unrest, whatever direction you want to take it. I mean, and I got some bookmarks here because Texas is not backing down. Let me go right here. So this is one of these first videos. Let me go ahead and mute myself. Actually, I might not need to. So they're re-putting up more of this razor barrier. This is from Charlie Kirk. He says, the Texas National Guard responds to the Supreme Court's order to remove the razor wire in Eagle Pass by installing even more. Governor Abbott has said Texas will not back down as it defends its border. Hold the line, Texas. And so that's them obviously putting up, I don't know if any barriers got taken down by the feds, but it looks like they're just installing more. Now this is from an account I don't know and it's unverified, so take this next portion with a grain of salt, or at least fact check me and don't take my word for it. The Texas National Guard is not backing down and ready to protect the border front with more soldiers even after the Biden win. Soldiers are being prepped like never before. And you can see it looks like they're mobilizing the Texas National Guard, in uniform and with riot gear too. So it looks like they're going to be ready for combatants. And I got to say, I do apologize. For one, and if you were a man of Texas, you probably feel, lucky to be in that position, to be able to stand up for your state. But I can't imagine being, involved in the Texas National Guard, but also being maybe not from Texas, not having the same kind of state loyalty that someone would have, being homegrown. But, being these men in uniform who are actively watching being used as pawns. Well, the evil Biden administration wants to ensure that the invasion keeps happening and keeps going at the rate it's going. And we're gonna make our servicemen batter each other with riot gear because once again, these stupid elites and politicians at the top want to just dictate everything. They want to use your sons, your children, your family's blood to get what they want to happen. And so it's just it's like they shouldn't even have to battle each other, man. The state, Texas, should have a right to secure its border. I don't think it's so unconstitutional. It's treason of the highest order. It's blatant treason, dude. And they know what they're doing too. They know every ounce of what they're doing. And I think Tucker puts it well. I maybe not put it well, but the next faction to take a stand, if the state backs down and the feds just take it over and shut the state down, because maybe the people will try to be peaceful, they're not going to try to kill each other. It will be a bunch of rednecks and Texas men just showing up to the border and popping shots. Like, I don't know how you expect it to go much differently. I don't know how you expect fathers who have had their daughters raped by, illegal immigrants to feel. I don't know how you expect, husbands who have had their wives killed and kidnapped and molested and assaulted in 100 different ways. I don't know how you're going to expect them to sit there and watch as the feds jump in and cut the razor wire down and continue to allow these uncivilized peoples through the southern border. Like, where do we go from here? But where do we go from here is conflict. It's people start actively hurting each other in the worst ways. And for something that could easily be prevented by just not allowing people to come in the effing border, by erecting a wall, by making, I'm not even, like, legal immigration too, like, that's got to stop as well. Like, there's been too many illegal immigration coming in to even to think for a second that we should even put any type of energy or effort towards keeping or committing to the process of legal immigration until we get all of the illegal stuff sorted out, those who need deported out, no amnesty, and righting those wrongs. And I think even Laura Loomer had put this forward on Timcast, which was like maybe it's going to take 10 years before we open our borders again to legal immigration. 20 years. It's not worth it that you make the American people, the American public, sacrifice because those at the top want to give taxpayer money to people who we can't afford and we can't help when the economy's in the shitter. But who am I, man? Maybe I'm just an idiot and they have it all right and they're 100% correct. And maybe America should have 400 million people in it by the time the 2024 election rolls around. And we should kind of see how, because population is not a problem or anything, right? We don't need to depopulate. So just bring all these people in here. It's all cyclical and nonsensical. It doesn't make any sense to anybody. What I will end on is not border related, but it is probably just as alarming. And let's see here. I commented this earlier. Billboard Chris with a picture of two gay men purchasing a baby who, I would assume from the format of Dave Rubin, which was, you're paying a couple grand for a surrogate to gestate a child for you with your DNA. And it's just gross. I said this on the podcast. I'll say it again. It is vile and evil. It is the most perverted form but there couldn't be any greater perversion of God's creation than making a business out of having kids. It's so vile to me, and let alone of its unnaturalness too. But this photo is so dystopian, and I'll take it in my comment, which was, how dystopian is it that they get undressed to take these weird photos in bed for social media, all for attention? The gay men's version of a pursed dog. Even if, and here's the thing. So this is what I'll have to give him. Maybe the guy with his shirt off laying there is the actual father, the one who donated the sperm. So maybe there's some credence to the child laying on his chest, if he was truly the one that inseminated the surrogate and it's his DNA. So he's doing the pair bonding on the chest. I understand that. The same way I would understand a heterosexual couple when the father being shirtless and holding his baby. But every single time you see one of these photos, it is done in the same exact way. The man lays on the couch or gets in the bed to take his clothes off as if he did some work. They're laying in that typical position as the husband would crawl around his wife, after she went through an exuberant amount of like physical pain, 12+ hour labor process. I mean, obviously it's your eighth kid, like it takes 30 minutes to just pop them out them things. But if you're like, this is your first kid or second kid, it's going to be a lot more of a rigorous process. It's much more of a proud moment. And what's crazy is, who's not pictured in this photo? The mother, the actual woman who gestated the child you see in this image. And this problem, it's getting worse. And there was a video that went viral, which was about yesterday, which was another gay man who had, I don't know if it was a surrogacy or he had adopted, but he adopted a black child, and he was not black himself. And he takes it to the internet, and he's like, I have no idea what to do about black kids' hair. Like, I'm reaching out for help. And, so a black lady stitched it, and she ripped them apart, and she was like saying things like, if you don't have a black person in your life, like that's kind of alarming. Like, why did you feel the desire to get a black child with no black influences in your own life? Because now you're going to kind of isolate this kid outside of their own ethnic group. And the second part, though, is it's just alarming that you go to social media to ask for help on these things when, like, you could just Google it, like you could find this stuff up. And it's like this, they're using the baby is like this tool to gain social media clout. And maybe you feel the same as me, but anecdotally, like I feel like most gay men really only care for attention more than any other thing that they maybe value, because they are, essentially no different than a woman when they become that effeminate. And what do women want more than anything? Well, they want to be looked at. They want to have the attention of the room. They want to be seen, as if it were, to say it better. And I want this to stop. I would like this to not be the future that we have sitting in front of us. Like, I want this to never, I don't want to see any more of these photos. I think it's criminal that you take children away from their mother. I think that every child deserves to have a father and a mother. And I think any ounce of you, knowingly or putting yourself as a barrier to prevent that or disallow that out of your wantingness or desire just to have a kid is like, man, like, why don't you repent and just have kids the way you were designed to? Like, repent to the Lord. He gave you every adequate ability, to have kids, outside of, the inability to have childbirth. I understand some people suffer from that, and that's not a diss on them. But you have the bodily anatomy to go and impregnate a woman. You don't have to live in sin and in defiance of the Lord. Like, just go and do it. Like, you're actively making this child's life worse because you want to live this selfish, me above all lifestyle that reflects nothing of Christ, dude. I just, like, if you have the ability and means to do it, like, just do it. I don't, all I can really even take this stuff as is like an attention grab. Look at me. We're so gay. We're going to get so many likes. We're the cool gay people. We're so glad we're allowed to do this. I just, like, get rid of it, dude. Ban it. Adoption's one thing. I will give that. But this circusy stuff, dude, like, that needs banned outright. Do not allow homosexual couples to purchase children. I think that's an easy sentiment to have. That's one that I carry, so. But with that being the majority of the news, really, I mean, the only things I really didn't touch on base was, like, Ron DeSantis is, he dropped out of the race. He had another, like, sad encapsulating moment where he said that he was quoting Winston Churchill, but really it was a Budweiser ad. And, if that doesn't perfectly, as Tim Pool said it, that perfectly describes his campaign. Just another blunder, another just, like, self-imposed mistake or self-sabotage. And I guess, I'll probably leave it with that. The main thing I did want to cover was the Christ and the Christ pill versus the red pill. Not much really has come out about the Texas border. I was kind of expecting maybe to see a bit more violence or a bit more contest taking place between those, and then they didn't. So I'm sure we'll get some more in the coming days, depending on what gets adjudicated, what legislature tries to get put forward. I imagine the Biden administration's not happy at all that Texas is choosing to not listen or not obey, but can you blame them when Joe Biden ignored the Supreme Court when they said that you can't forgive loans and they went ahead and decided to do it anyways? So we're getting to that point where nobody's respecting the big dog in the house. And if nobody respects the big dog, then it's going to just be a bunch of fighting with all the rest of the dogs that are left in the house or in the yard. And then there'll be a big dog again. But, you know, if across the board everybody looks to the top and they go, I don't respect that for nothing, it's just going to be a lot of chaos, because without that hierarchy in place, it just uproots and destroys a lot of the systems that we have in place that do good if they weren't corrupted and tainted by man's desires to do evil and spread evil. So I guess in closing, let me go back to my page here. So in closing, Offensively Accurate this Sunday, me, Nick Real, Thane Schwartz, and the man who runs with the cross, Wayne Harris. We are shooting for 9 p.m. That may be subject to change, but for right now, it's pretty set in stone that will be 9 p.m. And so join us on Spaces. You will need to follow either me, Nick, or Thane and I to be able to see the notification that we went live. But again, if 9 p.m., even if you don't get the notification, you can just go to one of our pages. You'll see a nice purple ring around our profile pic, or you'll get it in the banner on your mobile device or on your desktop once you go in, and you'll see like I'm hosting and that we're live. And join in because it is an interview with a new guest. We will not be bringing people on to speak with us until the end. If we have room for extra questions or like Q&A from the audience there towards the end. So we encourage you to listen and be involved. But again, I did want to put that note out there. And we're probably going to keep that rule in place for future interviews too, for people who are coming on who aren't just, when it's not just the co-host and I. That way we can keep it strictly to centered around them and discussions around them and what they're doing and their mission. And that way we can highlight it and do a better job of highlighting what they're doing, their successes, their positive contributions, and keep it more tight knitted with the Q&A at the very end with the discussion. So that way you still have a chance to say something, and obviously we won't be able to pick on everybody who joins in the group if we get like 10 of them, but maybe a couple questions we can take on and let Wayne talk directly to you. So with that being said, I appreciate you. I'll try to clip this up as soon as YouTube gives it back to me. So look to my page. I'll probably start putting up some more clips from the podcast everywhere from, on X, at Atlas_Thug_ or go find me on Facebook as well at just Aaron Shepard. Most of my links are in the flow code page under my X account, as well as majority of the descriptions. Majority of the links will be in the description of the video below. So once again, I appreciate for everybody who tuned in. I appreciate you, Donnie, for commenting. I always appreciate that. And again, I'm going to keep my head towards the news. I'll try to kind of keep my eyes towards what I see happening and just keep the mission going, man. This is it's been a real one. It's been a real good time, and it's been a real time red pill. Peace.